It's Fridays in the graveyard. I love a graveyard, don't you? Today I'm in Westminster, Maryland. I'm at Ascension Church. This church was built in the 19th century, but the grave that we're going to talk about in the church over here is the grave of Legh Masters, and he died in 1796, long before this church was here. He was actually moved here 40 or 50 years after his death, and that in itself is an interesting tale. Here's the thing about Legh Masters. He was a Brit. He was born in England. He built a big iron company there, made a fortune. He came here without his wife and children, evidently to try to make his fortune in America. He did buy 1,000 acres, and he built a big iron furnace and an iron company. He was a massive slaveholder, but he ended up never really making enough money to bring his wife and child here. He died about 25 years later. He died alone, and he died a very unhappy man surrounded by scandal. And he has a legacy for being a very unsavory person in Carroll County. So Legh Masters, as I said, was a great slaveholder. Had a lot of people that he enslaved. He enslaved a man named Sam. There was a conflict with Sam, some kind of angry exchange. Sam went missing. Sam's wife and child went missing shortly after. And there are some people that believe that Legh Masters was in love with the wife or the girlfriend. And he got Sam out of the way by pushing him into the iron furnace and having him burned alive. And the wife and the child, when the wife was angry about her husband being killed, evidently she and the child rejected Legh Masters, and he put them into a brick oven and then walled it up. They were buried alive. Many years later, after Legh Masters' house was sold and it was renamed Avonlea, there was a kitchen fire. And when they did the renovations to the kitchen area, when they were rebuilding the house, they did find 2 skeletons behind a brick wall. So Legh Masters was, because he was British in 1770, there was a lot of controversy surrounding him. So he didn't have a lot of friends. He had to go into exile and come back. And eventually he died. And when he died, they buried him on his property there at Furnace Hills, later Avonlea. And his bones surfaced a little while later. They didn't stay buried. So they opened the grave again and they reburied him. Then the bones surfaced again. So they reburied them, and after a third time of the bones resurfacing, and this is over a period of several decades, they decided to exhume Legh Masters and move him to the church cemetery on consecrated ground. And if you look at the way this tomb is built, you'll see that brickwork. What they did was they lowered Legh into this spot. They put brick on top of the whole grave and then put a big slab on top of that. There was no way these bones were resurfacing now. Except that a few years after that, the big stone marker that was across with the engraving that says, they've copied it on this stone, Legh Masters Esquire, late of Newhall in Lancashire, England, died the 22nd day of March, 1796 at age 79 years. The original slab cracked and broke. So they repaired it. And guess what? It cracked and broke again. And it's located over there. They actually put the old stone over on the hill there at the edge of the cemetery. But this is a brand new granite stone that they put over top of Legh Masters' grave. So evidently he is very unrestful. There's a haunted tale that I'm going to tell you now over where the broken slab is. Let's go see it. So what you see behind me is the old gravestone, the one that cracked before the Episcopal Church put the nice new granite one on. That's the one that was placed here in the 1800s when they finally reburied Legh Masters. But I said there was a haunted tale. The house that Legh Masters bought still stands. Today it's called Avonlea. And the haunted tale? The haunted tale is that Legh Masters' unrestful spirit still rides this area around the church. He rides on an old charcoal gray horse that spews fire out of its nose, and it's led by an imp. This is Fridays in the Graveyard. See you next week.